only presentation. So yeah.
There
Your ears must have been burning,
now we
Mish.
can start.
All right, welcome to the Monday, January 23rd City Council meeting. Thank you for joining us tonight. Please join me and the rest of council in a moment of mindfulness to get us ready for this meeting. I start this at every city council meeting now, and I ask you to close your eyes or just gaze downward. This is not mandatory, but you can sit quietly during this short exercise. And we do this so that we can become present and shake off our Monday blues and become more present in our meeting. So notice how you're sitting. Notice your posture. Maybe you've been slumped over your computer all day. Find a way to be relaxed and alert. And start noticing your breath and starting to take some deeper, slower breaths. So we're going to inhale on 4, and then exhale on 5. Inhale. Exhale. Exhale. Continue noticing your breath as I move on to start our meeting. And the breathing helps centers us, brings us to the moment we're in. And I just wanted to invite you to remember to wish yourself well in this process and the people sitting around you and who may be at home listening and joining us today. So with that, I hope you feel a little bit more aware and awake. And thank you for being curious and thoughtful and participating in your local government with your neighbors who were on city council. So with that, let's stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first up we have roll call.
James.
Here.
Leaks May.
Here.
Mikulski.
Here.
Polika.
Here.
Piana.
Here. Next up is the approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved by Polika and supported by Leaks May.
Polika.
Yes.
Leaks May.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Mikulski.
Yes.
Piana.
Yes. All right. Our first and only presentation tonight is an update by our Oakland County Commissioner, Charlie Cavell. Come on down. It's good to see you. It's been a while.
Hello.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So first, yes, good to see all of you again. I'm Charlie Cavell, our Oakland County Commissioner, and I'd like to give you 3 quick updates about what hopefully we can embark on in 2023 and 2024, but focusing on 2023 at Oakland County government and how we can work together. So first, that focuses on public safety, community resilience. Second, that's lowering bills. And third, that's boosting impact. So, I read my own chicken scratch sometimes. So, with public safety, there's 3 big things that are happening at the county that I think would be of note for Ferndale to be mindful of. First, that's something, there's a program called Lights On, which is a nationwide community policing effort, and this has been lifted up to the leadership, to the city manager and Chief Emmy, And this is something that we're looking to do with the Oakland County Sheriffs and are talking with folks around the community if they're interested in doing it. And what Lights On is instead of giving someone a fix-it ticket or some sort of infraction or only an infraction if their taillight or headlight is out on their car, giving them, perhaps in addition to a fix-it ticket, a voucher to get that taillight fixed, because that can be a deterrent for some folks. And so the vouchers that are given out by this program called Lights On, which is, again, a nationwide nonprofit, police departments big and small use this. It's one, a good community policing effort because it builds community trust, and then also it's up to $250 in value to get your car fixed at a mechanic that would partner with the local department doing this. And half the cost of the $250 voucher is borne out by the nonprofit, so that makes it even cheaper. And so one of the things that caught my eye when I was talking to them about it and why we're talking with the sheriff's office about it is to do Lights On for the city of Pontiac is estimated to be something like $6,000 or $7,000 a year. So that's what we mean by cost effective. And Pontiac has 61,000 people, right? 21. So that's just something interesting. Second, co-responders. So Oakland County Sheriff's Office has one co-responder, which is someone who, and again, this is like a nationally recognized model of how to co-respond with policing agencies, because what we've seen, not just because of the pandemic, but it's been exacerbated by the pandemic, is people with mental health concerns, one, don't have anywhere else to go or know of anywhere that's accessible to call, but then second, 44% of the people in Oakland County Jail right now, for example, have a diagnosable mental health concern. So a lot of policing interactions have a lot to do with mental health concerns. So a co-responder is a trained social worker or licensed counselor that then is able to co-respond to a call with police, and it helps de-escalate situations, it helps make everyone safer, it helps police who, to be honest, have to do all these things that they haven't been trained to do, and so then they're forced between a rock and a hard place. So it gives them more tools in their tool belt. And so Oakland County's had one co-responder in its department that I was proud to fight for. And now we'd like to do more. So testing the water, so please give me your feedback. And so we'd like to figure out how many or where we could put these throughout the county. So that's a second thing about public safety. And the third, the prosecutor has started a gun violence prevention commission in the aftermath of Oxford. And so she was kind enough to put me on it as like the commissioner person. And so one of the big things I've been learning about, and again would love to hear all your perspectives, is about restorative justice. So apparently there's this program out of Des Moines, Iowa, that they don't have school resource officers, they just have restorative justice coordinators and specialists, and it seems to be working well. But would love to hear more on the ground perspectives from folks. So that's the take on public safety. Second thing is about lowering bills. And again, this is for the 2023 goals. And again, this is like a working document, so give me your feedback. First, on Thursday, knocking on wood, as long as it works out, because it passed out of Finance Committee 8-0, is creating a Tenants' Rights and Responsibilities Council, which again is one of these nationwide things where, Austin, Texas did this in 1972, the state of Washington did this in 1974. It's a thing that helps create a space for mediation in landlord-tenant disputes before eviction court, and something that's more formalized than having to text your landlord to say, hey, the air conditioning's been broken, can you fix it? Or vice versa, the landlord saying, hey, you haven't done this thing you're supposed to do. You should do that before I have to take you to court. So it's a mediation space before eviction court proceedings, and hopefully we'll be able to start working with the Fair Housing Center of Metro Detroit as of Thursday, if everyone votes yes on it at the county commission meeting. So that'll be a big thing for helping people have lowered bills and more protections. Second, water affordability. The WRC, our Water Resource Commissioner, we've been collaborating with them on creating a water affordability fund. So it's something that's been talked about a lot, and there's an income-based payment program that's coming out through the Great Lakes Water Authority. So with the Water Resource Commissioner wanting to start a water affordability fund, and the Great Lakes Water Authority, and forgive me for everyone that's listening that goes, this is so wonky. But you all know all these acronyms. It's how government works and how we get clean water. But the WRC working with the GLWA and then having a water affordability fund set up would be a really pivotal thing for our residents. And so it's something that I've been working with them a lot, and it's in the hopper, so nothing super urgent to mention other than it's something we're thinking about. And when you're communicating with other folks, if they want someone to yell at about it, they can call me because we're working on it. And the third thing about lowering bills, this relates to both Ferndale residents and also city government. There's a group called My Maui, MI-MAUI, and it's a group of municipalities from around the state that work on rate case interventions with the Michigan Public Service Commission, because I don't know if anyone paying attention here knows this. I know you all do. But the city of Ferndale has to pay rent on lights, like street lights. So the city of Ferndale has a light bill just like us as homeowners or renters. So this group was set up to help cities have a unified voice in that, so that DT can't just raise rates, which then means we got to use taxes instead of on parks and stuff, but on streetlights. And also they do rate case interventions for individuals or cities that are representing their residents. So it's something that the environmental sustainability director, Aaron, who used to sit right here, is really chomping at the bit to get done. And then third, boosting impact. Since the Democrats took over in Lansing, the trifecta that people are calling it, right? The State House and the State Senate are now in Democrat control. And the state of Michigan has never had as much money as it has now, right? A $9 billion surplus in addition to record revenues from income tax. I've been having a lot of conversations about what that can look like, just as also a Democrat. So how we can do things related to housing, both with money and with laws that can help people have greater protections, and then also childcare and any number of other things, infrastructure. So those are the three big things: public safety, lowering bills, and boosting impact. And would love your feedback. Here or offline, you know.
Charlie. I'm going to start. I appreciate you being here and giving us an update. You know, the affordable housing is something that this council has cared about. What's so hard, though, to strike the balance is between local policy and local available funds in your general fund in order to provide the incentives required to make the affordable housing work. And for some reason, nobody's talking about the significant pressures cities are still facing with Headley and Prop A. And so that is the real factor about how small cities who don't receive a lot of funding through CDBG, we are ineligible for home funds as a small non-entitlement city. And there was a huge discrepancy between ARPA funds between cities. I'm sure you are aware of that, per capita by population totals because of entitlement, non-entitlement federal funding formulas through CDBG. We just can't keep giving away tax incentives. It is not a winning strategy for small cities who don't have the funds coming in to offset the cost of affordable housing. So if anything, if the county, and the process is very long to go through the state. It takes a year to year and a half to get funding approved through pilots and or other tax incentives if they're coming from the state. So the process isn't quick for cities, and there is pressure between the city policy and what financially feasible the city can do. So you're growing your community, you're increasing the services needed, but you're also giving a tax credit over time. So you're reducing your revenue to pay for those increased demands on your services. That is not a winning formula against Headley and Prop A. And I'm not sure how cities can achieve statewide, be contributing to statewide and county affordable housing goals when cities like Ferndale, where we're located along transit lines, where you're supposed to have transit accessible housing, when we don't have the tools or funding to actually do more.
Yeah.
And our community wants to do more.
Understood.
So if you can work on that, make some magic happen?
Taxes, housing.
Yeah, fix
Yeah,
Headley
okay,
for
no
us.
big deal.
But the story of Headley Prop A has somehow no longer in anybody's mind, as we have a $9 billion surplus.
Ooh, that's a good
So
point.
I don't hear anybody talking about it at the state level anymore,
That's a good point.
right? So the problem hasn't just disappeared. It is still omnipresent for every decision that we make on council. So whatever you can do through your political channels up at the county, that would be really helpful. And I will now step off my soapbox
Well, if
and
I-
allow anybody else on council to make comments on any topic you so desire to have.
Well,
Charlie.
if I hear you right, Mayor, you're also saying that with those record revenues, that revenue sharing is not the long-term answer. The long-term answer is structural fixes, not we'll give you some more money while we're flush, and then you'll have to deal with it in a couple years if we're not flush.
Yeah, you
Okay.
can't start new programs with one-time funds that are never going to return again. That is not consistent program and services for cities to be able to rely on for our businesses and residents who deserve services, quality services.
Okay.
Through the chair, just since it's relevant to the discussion, I haven't checked savemycity.org in a while, but that's a great tool for understanding how statutory revenue sharing works and why, I guess how the state has been holding on to those statutory revenues that are supposed to go back to communities. And I just checked it as you were talking, and the pot is up to $8.6 billion with a B dollars have been diverted away from communities by the state. That's the surplus right there.
Oh, yeah.
That's our money. We'd love to have it.
And I know you're not at the state or Senate level, right? I can't make these changes, but it's all voicing, everybody who's elected voicing these issues and channeling it upward. So anything you can do about that.
Understood.
But I do appreciate these programs to help people address their bills. You know, water is about health, public health, and you need clean water and regular water coming to your homes as part of having a healthy family.
And if I may, through the chair, I'm really excited about this Tenants' Rights and Responsibility Council. There's so many issues going on with the tenant and the landlord relationship. It needs some regulation, I think, some intervention. So.
Well, and to you saying that too, you know, with seniors, we all, I think, saw that article a few months ago from Dorothy Conrad, the 88-year-old in senior apartment in Birmingham. And so I totally hear you. It's not just like working families or young people that are renters. It's also baby boomers and older adults. Yeah. And those are often the most vulnerable.
Well, I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Next up is call to audience, and we set aside 30 minutes, and we ask people to keep their comments to 3 minutes, and we have a clock over there to help be mindful of your time, and our staff person helps manage that, and you can talk anything about you want on agenda or off.
And if there are existing smoke alarms, how many are actually working? Because what do a lot of us do? They start beeping, we take out the battery, right? Because we don't want to keep hearing that chirp. Everybody's laughing because it's true. Yeah, but we forget to go get that 9-volt battery, put it back in. So how many are actually working? And at the end of all this, the homeowner actually gets a report emailed back to them with all this information that they just had a conversation about. So they can refer to it later. So through this program, 4,336 home surveys were done. 87% of those homes had an inadequate number of working smoke alarms. That's crazy high. As a result, an average 4 smoke alarms were installed per home. So a total of almost 19,000 smoke alarms have been installed through this program so far. So the fact is smoking is the leading cause of residential fire fatalities in Michigan. And of the 213 homes that were surveyed that had a smoker in the home, 96% of those homes had inadequate number of smoke detectors in them. In homes with disabled individuals, 87% of the homes, because we know people with disabilities, they unfortunately have a higher risk of dying in a residential fire, and we don't want that to happen. 87% of the homes surveyed, 87 of the homes surveyed had a disabled individual living there. 85% of those homes had inadequate number of working smoke detectors, which means you don't get that notification, that warning to give you that time to get out. So people say, well, what is an inadequate number? How many you're supposed to have in your house? You should have a smoke alarm on every level of your home and in every bedroom. So inside the door, not in the hallway outside. They should be tested every month and change the batteries every 6 months. And after 10 years, you should get a new smoke alarm. So far in 2023, up to February 6th, we've already lost 16 lives in the state of Michigan to fires. 16 different fires, each resulted in a fatality. Now this is a decrease from if you look at a 5-year average before, but fires are up. What we do know is the majority of victims are males between the ages of 40 and 79. This year, the number one area of origin of fires is in the bedroom and caused by smoking. And we know the deadliest time of day is in the evening. In 2022, last year, we had 132 lives lost to fires. It was a 23% increase in deaths. That's huge. There was a 20% increase in fires. Again, more than half of the victims were males. About a quarter of them were disabled. 10% reported as being on oxygen, and over half were between the ages of 40 and 79. Last year, living room, bedroom, and kitchen were the most common places, with living room being the biggest one. But again, smoking, almost half the fires that resulted in these fatalities were caused by smoking. And again, in 2021, you'll see the same type of trends that we've been noting. And 2021, there was a 12% decrease. But again, in 2022, we had that astronomical increase. So to put it in perspective in another way, every 23 seconds, a fire department responds to a fire somewhere in this country. Every 89 seconds, a single home fire occurred, and every 64 seconds, we're responding to some type of fire in a structure. And every 3 hours and 24 minutes, somebody's losing their life to a house fire. And an injury occurs about every 46 minutes. And beyond the loss of life, we also care about loss of property and damage. One of the most heartbreaking things I have in my job is when I'm dealing with a family in the midst of their tragedy and find out they don't have homeowners insurance, they don't have renters insurance. There's so much lack of knowledge and education and people thinking, well, my landlord has insurance. They might, but that doesn't cover any of your stuff. So you see these people lose everything and they have nothing to help them replace it. Or people have paid off their homes, so they aren't getting homeowners insurance anymore because it's not part of their escrow or their mortgage, and don't realize something happens, and now we're trying to find ways to help them put it back together. But there's $7.3 billion in direct property damage with that. And then this one was staggering to me. It shows 3 out of every 5 fatal fire victims were 55 years old or older, and nearly 2 out of every 5 were 65 or older. And what that tells me is the gap in the need we have for higher education. We focus on our schools, but also getting into our senior community, our adult communities, and within our community, so they understand fire safety as it applies to them now. So what do we do here in Ferndale? Your fire department, our fire department, cares about this community. Our goal is to have 0 lives lost and minimal property lost. Since I've been chief here, we've had lives lost to fire. And we all want that to be 0. We have a program. That QR code is up here, but it's also on the website. And you can scan it and schedule for a free home fire safety survey of your home. It's not for us to come out. There's no tickets, there's no violations, there's no risk outside of us coming out and educating you, taking about 40 minutes of your time to tell you how to make your home safe and install smoke detectors if you need them, and no cost to you. So we receive smoke detectors from the state because we do participate in the state's program. Homeowners can contact us by the QR code or call the fire station. We do install the smoke detectors. It is required for us to actually do the install. One ensures that they're installed properly, and it saves you the headache or the hassle trying to do it yourself. Everything we do is tracked by the state, which is how we get the data that I provided you a moment ago. Now, this is not valid for rental properties because landlords are required by law to provide these smoke detectors. If we purchase our own or we get smoke detectors by any other means, we can still enter this into the state program for the tracking and for the data to show what we're doing here in Ferndale. And the last thing I want to leave you with is the state has created this app, and this is for the citizens of Michigan. Again, you can scan that QR code and download it. I have the link up there, and I can also provide this to you later. And what I did is I just provided 4 screenshots. The first one on the far left, it might be hard to see up there, shows all the languages that it comes in. So when you first get to the home screen, you're choosing English, American Sign Language, Arabic, Karanik, Mandarin Chinese, Spanish, or Vietnamese. So they have it translated in all those languages for people. The second one you get to is quick links to get to safety tips, Michigan-specific videos, and home safety videos. Again, give you resources to help you know how to be safe and educate your family and apply some of the stuff I talked about today. The next one screen you can click to by the middle button at the bottom is to request smoke alarms or to see the statistics that I went over today. And the last one is resources. So it's a sound-off app, Smart 911, home safety checklist, and alarm installation location. So if you're installing your own locations, you have a guide to help you know where to install them, and the home safety checklist to know how to go through your own home. And a lot of times we don't know the stuff that's dangerous, and we don't know what we don't know. And we may be overloading electrical sockets or have different things in our home that we didn't realize was dangerous, and so these checklists can help us make our home safe places. So that is all I want to have. Leave you guys with is those couple resources and answer any questions if anybody has them.
Thank you for your presentation. Question? All right, we are now going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is call to audience, and we set aside 30 minutes for residents to say what's ever on their mind and invite you up to the podium. We do have this nice clock over here to be mindful of your 3 minutes. Hi there, welcome.
Hi.
How are you? It's good to see you.
First time in a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's good to see you.
Dennis Augustin, 1550 Spencer. I got a question for the fire chief. Busy back there.
You can talk to her at the end, but what else?
Oh, I think it'd be something that everybody want to hear with electrical vehicles. And that, how prepared is the city of Ferndale to put out an electrical fire on a car? Electrical fires don't die very easy, and it seems to be a big concern with other fire chiefs around the communities around the area. I've been seeing it on the news, and I was just wondering how prepared Ferndale is to handle this stuff too, because you know, if it's that kind of an issue where other fire chiefs are really concerned, because you can't put the fires out, and we're all eventually going to be driving electrical vehicles. You know, those could be pretty deadly too. And you know, and if I'm going to have to be forced to buy one, and I did say forced, I'm going to be one of the last gas guzzling driving people around here, and I want to know that if it short circuits, okay, that vehicle can be put out. Bad enough that those batteries, and I'm hearing a ridiculous price on those batteries of 10 grand, and you know, if those fires can't be put out, you can't afford to lose a vehicle, you know, as well as life in them. And I was just wondering how prepared the city is for that. Yeah.
Just real quickly. Can you go to the microphone though?
So the short answer is electric vehicle fires. We do have to fight those fires differently. However, we do have access to resource blankets that are designed specifically to put out electric vehicle fires. Hazel Park got them off a grant. We work closely with them, so we would just call them to deploy them over if we need them for pallets of lithium batteries or vehicle fires. We have that resource.
Is that a foam? Is that a spray foam type?
Nope, it's actually a blanket that goes over and it smothers the fire out.
Okay.
Okay?
All right,
Thank you, Chief.
that's it.
Excellent, thank you. Great question. Hi, welcome.
Hi, Tom Kaiser, I live on Withington, and I just want to bring up to the council and the planning commission, you have a problem with delivery to the strip mall, the commercial strip mall that will be west of the proposed, apartment complex, and it's the 14 parking slots. So if those go to the apartment complex, where are you going to make deliveries that have to come in the back of the mall? Because the truck that currently pulls in there a couple times a day, he has to maneuver off of Livernois back in where those 14 parking spots are. And then he's got a large semi, he's got a 53-foot trailer, and then he has a 20-foot ramp that has to come off of it. He unloads it, and then goes behind the building to deliver all those businesses, the restaurants, Big Coffee, etc. So if he can't make a delivery there, where are you going to park the semis? So what that necessitates is that you have to do a type of parking or traffic flow study for that proposal, and that involves with the 9-mile corridor, the Livernois corridor, how all the traffic and parking is going to interact with each other. So I went back and listened to the YouTube presentation when it was first proposed by the city, and somebody suggested that I guess that somehow the city's going to help fund, the study. Now, there's 3 of us in the area that will be impacted by that. We've worked construction all of our life, worked for private contractors, never in our life, and an architect, and never in our life have we ever heard that the city underwriting a presentation or study like that. Generally, the private developer absorbs those costs. And as a resident, if the city's going to pay for it, I'd like a heads up, because I'm going to speak for a lot of residents that are retired on fixed income, like I do. I got a fixed pension, never going to increase. Last time I went to buy eggs at Ferndale Food, quite expensive. So it's something that we all should be concerned about. Who's going to pay for these costs like that study? And also, if you have to upgrade the infrastructure improvement, both above grade and below grade. Generally, the contractors I work for, they'll absorb that cost. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom, for being here. Hi, Prasad, welcome.
Hello, thank you. My name is Prasad Venugopal, and I live on West Troy Street with my wife and 2 children, both of whom are students in the Ferndale Public Schools. I'm here today to speak about the proposed ordinance on the Community Advisory and Review Board for the Police Department. I believe the correct title is the Citizens Police Review and Advisory Board. Late in the evening of June 6, 2020, I wrote a long email to Mayor Piana and Councilwoman James in response to their call for feedback to the first draft of the city's commitment to anti-racism, subsequently passed on June 8, 2020. In that email, I suggested some specific measures that would strengthen the resolution section of that commitment, including reviewing the use of force and policies of the PD, requiring a racial impact assessment of all policies of the city, creating a community advisory board for the PD as recommended by the 21st century community policing model, monitoring the implementation by the Ferndale Police Department of the recommendations of the 21st century policing report, and reviewing the cooperative policing agreements of the PD with other law enforcement agencies to ensure that we are partnering on the basis of community policing requirements. These measures were enhanced, made better, and included in future drafts as a resolution, including the adopted version. And even though it has taken more than 2.5 years, and Council knows that I have been very public about my disappointment with that, I am entirely thrilled, and so thrilled to see that there is a proposed ordinance. And I'm pleased that it builds upon the language of the 2020 resolution as was amended, and I ask that Council approve this ordinance. I could not see the language of the ordinance prior to this meeting, even though it was discussed in October. I hope that the community advisory, the police review board that is formed, will be an independent body that will be collaborative when it needs to with the police department to help them do better in their policing, and also challenge them when need be. In the intervening 2.5 years, we have seen in this country that the need for community oversight of law enforcement has increased, and the need for deepening community and police relationships have never been greater. I'm sorry. This makes me emotional. Last couple of weeks ago, I know I'm out of time.
Take a few seconds to wrap up.
I ask that this board be formed and populated. And I ask that the proposed contract with flock safety not be signed or formulated without the express study and input of that community advisory board. We are moving into dangerous territory with the flock safety program. And I'm sorry to say that supposed community forum was much more of a sales pitch rather than a true community forum. And so I know I'm out of time, and I wish I had a little more time to talk about it, but I'll send the rest of my remarks as an email. But I ask that council not only approve this ordinance, but also give one of its first charges to review and do a study of the racial impact of the contract to buy automated license plate readers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Tim Perret. First, I wanted to thank the Ferndale Community Foundation and the council ahead of us for not only supporting the arts, but nurturing a community that gives back. I personally have felt very supported here, and I appreciate that. And I wanted to take a moment to invite you all to our upcoming concert, Broadway in the Burbs. As you'll remember from 2021, the last time that we had Broadway in the Burbs here, we were fortunate enough to partner with downtown Ferndale and host this in Troy Street, right outside of the Dot. This year, we're celebrating another one of our great community amenities, which is the Ferndale High School Auditorium. And so I just wanted to share some more information about the concert. We've got 5 incredible Broadway stars who are joining us here in Michigan for 1 week, starting February 23rd through the 26th at Ferndale High School. And they'll be performing some of the most incredible Broadway songs from shows like Les Mis, Wicked, Oklahoma, South Pacific, and more. And in fact, we're working with the Ferndale Community Concert Band to find some local musicians who are able to offer an instrument petting zoo to many of our local students who are aspiring musicians to get more familiar with what it would be like to be a professional musician in the community. So this is happening next week, February 23rd through the 26th, and I did leave some flyers in the back, so if anybody is interested, they're there. But I wanted to invite you all personally, and once again, extend my gratitude for your support and for everybody being such a welcoming community. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim.
Hi, I'm Sharon Chess, president of the Ferndale Community Concert Band. And so our next upcoming concert is March 26th on my birthday. I expect every one of you to show up. And you don't have to wish me a happy birthday. You just have to listen to the music and celebrate the day with us. On another note, I know that we have a committee about accessibility issues that are going along in the community, and that's been a great concern of mine for quite some time. Actually, past Chief Sullivan brought it to my attention last summer when he couldn't get into his favorite restaurant, Hambo's, because there's a lack of handicap parking in the area, and then I've been paying specific attention to that, and all of the new changes that we've done to parking and everything else, bike lanes and stuff like that, we have thrown caution to the wind and forgot about our residents who are compromised physically or just by age. And I think we need to pay specific attention to not only the number of handicap parking spaces we have in the community, but where they are located. Because if you put 5 handicap parking spaces in a particular parking lot, but they still have to cross 2 sidewalks in the street and walk in a pathway in order to access the businesses, still creates a problem. And when they want to get into a particular storefront, if that storefront doesn't have the push button for the door to open and they're on a walker and a wheelchair, it also prevents accessibility. The other day when it was raining, I was at Soho visiting with Tolly at 215, and it was raining, just pouring cats and dogs, and my car was parked up by Orchid. When I came out, there was a woman on a walker, probably in her 70s, without a hat, and she was just soaking trying to operate the parking thing there. So I told her, I said, hurry up, tell me how long you want here, I'll take care of your parking for you. So she rolled to wherever she was going and said she wanted 3 hours, which of course our parking meters only allow 2 hours. She must have had a doctor's appointment or something in the area. And then I couldn't get any more than 1 hour. So I'm hoping she didn't get a ticket. So I'm hoping we can examine our parking opportunities for our seniors and those who are physically compromised, and make some kind of allowance or identification as to allowing them to come to our community and to access our businesses without having to try and utilize our parking entities unsuccessfully. And I'm hoping she didn't get a ticket. I'm praying that the parking guy didn't want to stand in the rain either. But yeah, so please, when you're looking at accessibility, think of the multi-generational people and the people who are physically challenged in trying to navigate through our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon. Is there anybody else this evening who would like to say something on their mind? All right, with that, I'm going to call the audience, and we're going to move on to our public hearings, and we have 2 tonight. And the first one is 6A, is review of the environmental assessment and brownfield plan for 503 East 9 Mile Road. And each of our public hearings have 4 steps to them. The first step is a staff presentation with the applicant, if they wish to speak, the applicant. Step 2 is public comment. I will open it up for public comment on this item for the public hearing. Then I'll close public comment, and then we'll move to council questions of staff and the applicant, and then move into motion for debate and discussion. So that's the same process for 6B as well. Introducing 6A is Roger, our Community Economic Development Director. It's good to see you, Roger.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. As the Mayor mentioned, this is item 6A, review of environmental assessment and brownfield plan for 530 East 9 Mile Road. So just a little background, this is for the Shepherd House. I think most people are familiar with it. Just a little background, Shepherd House is about 50,000 square feet, mixed-use building on 9 Mile east of City Hall on the north side. It includes 41 one-bedroom apartments and 12 two-bedroom apartments. The project includes 30 affordable units at people below 30% or below area median income. The council has authorized direct participation by approving a payment in lieu of taxes pilot agreement. The request before you is to accept the environmental assessment as part of MISHDA's requirements as submitted by ASTI Environmental. This is a formality. I think the city manager can speak a little bit to it, but the brownfield was a Eagle grant, I think in the amount of about $700,000 for contamination cleanup for the facility. That is staff's presentation.
I hope council read all 2,685 pages of the environmental report that came attached with this item. There's quite a bit of documentation here on this. Is there anybody? Is there anybody from the applicant who wants to speak on this?
Through the chair, I can add a little bit of context. The applicant is Full Circle LLC. They're developers out of Chicago. This is the final step in their march towards the conclusion of starting this project. They have a very complex financing structure that involves state incentive, brownfield incentive through Eagle, but it also involves significant LIHTC housing credits through MISHDA, which is our housing development authority at the state level. So they've won those grants, and part of their MISHDA process is to submit their environmental assessment for local review. Not being an expert, I did ask Fishbeck Consulting, who is our environmental consultant, to review the assessment, provide feedback, and provide me some assurances that it meets our local jurisdiction's needs. That assessment's been filed with the state and is now being filed locally here. So this local public hearing is a requirement of the MISHDA process. And so this is council, you're not adopting anything, you're just formally receiving this report as their final part of the project.
Receiving the report and receiving any public feedback that may influence it. I will add there's one more step. I think after 30 days after council approval, then we'll come back and seek a FONSI notice, which is a request to release funds. There's one more step after this.
Okay, and does that conclude all of our approvals to begin the construction of this development? Are we done at the end of this long 2.5-3-year
Council's
process?
appointed me as the representative for Ferndale, so at this point, yes, this concludes the last of the public process, and I will just be continuing to utilize our environmental consultant to review any documents related to environmental submittals that they submit to us.
Okay. All right, well, that concludes the staff presentation. I'm going to open it up to public comment. Is there anybody here in the audience today that would like to give comment on the environmental assessment and brownfield plan for the Raymond E. Shepherd House through Full Circle Development? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment and open it up for council questions. Other than reading the Fishbeck assessment, they caught some very nitpicky things, and I thought it was very thorough. Everything seems to comply, and just reading more history about the footprint of the parcel.
Interesting.
Of what used to be there over in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and its various uses of auto-centric manufacturing uses. So, all right, seeing no questions, we need a motion from council to proceed.
Mayor, I move that we approve the attached environmental assessment and brownfield plan as provided by ASTI Environmental.
Support.
Moved by Leaks May and supported by Polika.
Leaks May,
Yes.
Polika,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Mikulski,
Yes.
Piana.
Yes. All right. I'm excited that we're getting the end of all of the complicated financials and incentives to make the affordable housing work at this development project. All right, we're moving on to 6B, and Roger, still with you. 6B is the consideration of the planned unit development or PUD amendment for 221 West Troy Street, also known as the DOT.
So I'm going to quickly turn this over to Kyle Bryce, our senior planner. He will give you a little bit of background information, and I think the applicant is here to speak. So Kyle, if you have it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Pull up a few slides here. Okay. So this is for 221 West Troy Street. This is commonly known as the DOT parking garage, along with the first floor retail along Troy. So for anyone who's, I guess, a little out of the loop or wants some background info, I'm just going to do a brief overview of the history of the DOT, and then I will circle back to why we're here tonight. So this is a PUD, which is intended to provide development options that allow for flexibility in normal zoning requirements. This all started with the parking lot located at Troy and Allen. It was a city-owned municipal lot. I believe there was some vision many years before I came here about what the city could do there. At some point, this percolated down into a mixed-use parking structure, as we all know out there today. but there's a lot of background with that. So eventually in 2017, there was an original PUD that went through the city approval process late summer and early fall that was approved October 30th by council. This was pretty quickly reformatted, and I believe branded PUD Slim. It was a little bit of a smaller version of what was approved in 2017. And on June 25th of 2018, we approved an amended PUD. So that 2018 PUD is very critical. That's basically what is out there today. That set the tone for the development, and it created not only the parking structure and the leasable spaces on the first floor, but it also created a framework for a rooftop office component and a residential component that fronts on Troy that has a lot of Allen frontage as well. So when the 2018 PUD went through, we approved the parking garage site plan. So that was done. The applicant has to circle back for the rooftop office as well as the residential. So the office came back in 2019 and received site plan approval, but then a lot of things happened, COVID happened, development happened. So long story short, we are now back for just the residential component. So this has been on our radar since March of 22. And at February 1st, the Planning Commission did unanimously vote for a recommendation for council to approve. Here's a list of what we approved in 2018 in terms of the PUD deviations. These are things like we are not including private open area, or we are keeping a 0-foot rear setback for the alley. So these are still in effect. These are unchanged. This is a nice view of the site and include some of the terminology here. So the large parcel is parcel A. That's essentially the parking garage. And parcel B is the smaller site on the west-hand side, which has the Allen frontage. I'd like to point out this public plaza as part of the 2018 approval was cut out. So the parcel lines do exist, but for our purposes of design, we created new setbacks. So that's why in the corner there you'll see a little public plaza. So tonight we're really only dealing with parcel B. I would say that with the framework of the 2018 PUD, if we didn't have to make any changes, I wouldn't even be here tonight. It would just go through site plan approval and then we'd be done. When we went through the design process, we found that there are a few deviations that we needed to go forward with the design as we have it now. So that is why we are circling back tonight. We have a few new deviations, so we are re-amending the 2018 PUD. Here's more of the amendments that were created in 2018. A lot of things were cut in terms of requirements. And then just so we all have a better understanding, here's a view looking southeast in July 2017 as the parking lot as we all knew it. And here is the site today. It's quite a dramatic transformation. This is the area here. I don't know if you, looks like you can see my mouse. So this grass area here along Allen, this is parcel B, and this is where the current residential component is slated. These are additional conditions related to parcel B. Council at that time said we could do office or residential. That was an option. We did set the height to 55 feet in the PUD agreement, but the developer is now proposing to go forward with 70, which is permitted in the underlying zoning district. So what are we here for tonight? These are the new PUD deviations. So there's a 5-foot extension of the building into the west and north property lines. There's a canopy extension about 10 feet, 6.5 inches into the north property line, and 6 feet, 7.5 into the west, and some Juliet balcony extensions 7 feet into the west and the north. And just a quick note that all those north encroachments go into that public square on the counter, or the corner. They don't actually go into the right-of-way. That's all I have for that. So at this time, I would like to bring up the applicant. So we do have Jason Krieger.
Thank you. Good evening, Jason Krieger with Krieger Clad Architects, 2120 East 11 Mile. Adam Stewart with Versa Development. Greg Ernie's the applicant. He's out of town. He couldn't be here this evening, so we're going to try and fill any shoes and walk you through the presentation. As Kyle mentioned, this is right on the corner of Allen and Troy. Can everybody see what's on the screen right now? So I make sure everyone, okay. So this right here is the west elevation, right along Allen Street, looking to the east. So it's a 5-story building. Some of the questions that came up from the Planning Commission was, why some of the changes, things like that. And it seems like, when the initial PUD, we weren't involved with it, weren't a part of it, it seems like it was almost like a placeholder. Once you apply actual construction technology, other spaces in the building, like corridors, stairs, elevators, there was hardly any space left. So that's why the building footprint was proposed to grow a little bit, and that's why we increased the height a little bit. This building does not walk into the parking deck, so we don't have to worry about any connectivity there. So we're able to build the building as you would any other apartment building. The ground floor that you can see there, it's a bit taller. That's intended to be a commercial use. And I'll show you some floor plans, but there's a commercial use. There's also some common areas like mail, a lobby for the residents, and that commercial area could be for rent, correct? Absolutely. Yep. And then if anybody has any questions, just please stop me. I don't know how much you want to hear or how much you don't want to hear, so I'll try and be brief and then answer questions. I think everybody's familiar with the location. I don't need to touch on these. The west corner of the site. Okay, so this right here is let me see what the next slide is. So this right here is an architectural site plan. I'm going to try and zoom in here. Okay, so as Kyle mentioned, this building steps back south from the front of the dot. So there's this plaza that exists out on the north. This dashed line represents that canopy that is proposed to overhang. And this dark line here represents the property line. So you can see that the building steps in to the east a bit, on the west, slightly from the north, but then the building projects out on the upper floors. See if I can. Come on. There we go. Oh, see, now it caught up to me. Yeah. So these are typical floors. The building consists of one bedrooms and studios. We have stairs on either end, and then we have a corridor that basically runs parallel to the garage. Some of the comments, when I get to the upper floor, I'll mention that. From planning, we had some great comments when we went through Planning Commission, and we were following the comments that we received. These are more like 2D, drafted elevations. This is pretty important. See these dark lines here? That represents the property line. And then this is where the overhang is proposed to go past the property line. The height is 20 feet high, so it's clear if any work has to be performed to the sidewalks. And then we're also proposing that the building cantilevers over as well. Here we go. And so then here's a better view of the ground floor. This, to me, it looks pink. Let's say to you guys. Represents for lease space. Some of the comments, there were comments from the last Planning Commission that aren't in this. This just simply wasn't updated, but it was to move the doors to the north instead of along the west. And then this here is our common area for the residents. And then this is an egress stair that goes out to the north, egress stair that goes out along the alley. And then we have our transformers and refuse and things like that. The refuse would be inside the building. And then here's the upper floors. Typical floors. This is the 5th floor. We only have 3 apartments up there, and then the building steps back. The idea is to step the massing back as you go up because it's taller. And one thing that we did was, there was a comment about balconies. So we're making the windows along the south facade fixed to try and help shield the residents to the south. And then we had a Juliet balcony that faced to the south. We moved it to the west. And then we stepped the upper floor back, and then we offered to do a higher screen wall here if the Planning Commission wanted. And that there were some of those items that came up that I just mentioned that they agreed that we could speak with staff afterwards and iron that out. We have some colored elevations. You know, we're proposing cast stone. So really, really nice materials, metal panels, cast stone, glass. So, you know, the dot has very nice materials on it. We want to make sure that it's in kind. Should have some renderings, building sections. So then this is a view of the building. So you can see it's rather tall on the street, and then we're stepping it back as you go up. And that's the dot, obviously, right there. And this is Allen Street. That's it. So that's the building. You want to add anything, Adam?
It's a beautiful project so far. We're happy with the initial round of retailers, and we are excited to add another retailer.
Thank you.
Thanks. We're available for questions.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up for public comment first, and then bring you back for council questions.
Okay, great.
All right. Are there any opening it up for public comment tonight?
On the dot, the way it is existing, that little corner, where over in the past few years we've held special events, tree lighting, the Broadway and the Burbs and that kind of thing, will that space still be available, or will we have to get special permission to do any kind of event space there? They're going to expand over the top of that. I'm curious.
West Troy Street will still be a shared street and be open for future events.
Even though that's going to cantilever over the top of that space there?
Yes.
Okay, that won't be their property then, it still belongs to
I think there will be arrangements with the city and the property owner on that.
Thank you.
Hi,
Good
Sherry,
evening,
welcome.
Sherry Wells, 315 West Troy Street, second house from Allen. What I'm not clear on is this supposed to be affordable housing or the typical luxury stuff that's been going up around here? And who's owning that apartment building? Is it city-owned? Is it going to be an outside developer? But most importantly is what you will be subjecting those residents in those 18 units to, and this is from my experience. Noise, if not the bars, the boom boom cars that go by frequently, the car alarms from the parking garage, the festivals, although not the Ferndale Art Fair, for a few years now, it has not had the sound stages, and the artists are very pleased to be able to talk to their prospective customers, which you can't do when you have blasting speakers going. The family that lived on the corner before the family that now lives next to me had a gorgeous baby girl, and she seemed to be fine, but their second child had a sensitivity to sound, as some of us do, and they had to move. They could not live there because of all of the noise that goes on around there. I can just imagine someone who lives in one of those 18 units, and someone says, "Oh, where do you live?" "Oh, I live in the parking garage." That sounds pretty classy. And to me, it's very obvious. We have apartment buildings going up. I tried to get some kind of a count. I know the city must have it. Ferndale House has 109 units. Shepherd, they said, is going to have 63. 409 didn't call me back. I don't know how many they have, but this looks like we're getting close to hundreds. We have Royal Oak next to us that has a building after building after building. I don't know, I remember when the condos went up right across the street from here, they couldn't sell them initially for a long time. They were renting them, and I know someone who rented for 1 year, and as soon as his lease was up, he was gone because it was just too expensive. So this just isn't stopping, and I just find it ludicrous.
Thank you. We'll have the developer and Roger answer your questions after public comment, or Kyle. Is there anybody else who would like to provide public comment at this time? All right, I'm going to close public comment and open it up for council questions. But Kyle, if you could answer some of the questions that we heard from Ms. Wells.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So in terms of the special events, the public plaza is not going to change. It's going to remain as it is. It'll be a little bit cantilevered upon, but I don't think in terms of special events or ownership, nothing will change. As for who owns it, I'm a little unclear about that. I would defer to the city manager. It is us, ultimately. We do have a development agreement with the operator that is forthcoming.
We negotiated the development agreement upon the initial action items with the DOT in 2018. So we already have an existing development agreement. It is the city's property until they complete this process and close on the title work, which involves a site plan review and a PUD approval. So they're going through their processes right now, but once they meet the requirements that we have in the development agreement, that's when the transfer would come to once the project is actually buildable.
Yes, so the city, the city owns the property.
Is this better, Div?
Thank you.
Okay. Good.
Can we please refrain from shouting from the audience? So.
Barely heard back here, so.
I hear you. We're gonna speak up. So the city currently owns the property, and as soon as the development, probably the
Yes.
chief or
The city owns the property as part of a negotiated development agreement from 2018. We still retain ownership until the property is developed per the development agreement terms that have already been negotiated. Some of those terms do include affordable housing. So it is affordable, and we have that negotiated into the development agreement. They also have to deliver site plan approval, which they're going through right now, and an approved PUD, which they're going through right now. So these are the basic development steps that they have to go to in order to get the title transferred from the city. And once that happens, the apartment building is transferred to the developer. The city will not own the apartment building.
I think those were the questions I heard from Ms. Wells. And so now I'll open up for questions from council. And if you have any questions at this time about the amended PUD.
Through the chair, I had a quick question about the cantilevered roof. So is that going over the sidewalk?
A portion of it, yes. So this is probably the best view of it here. So you can see the shaded canopy area above. So it will be going over the sidewalk.
Okay, follow-up question. I'm not really understanding the green spaces. Are those supposed to be trees that would live under the canopy?
Yeah, we did discuss this at the planning commission meeting. I think we left it to the developer to select trees that are going to be functional under that space. So they're not going to be completely under it, but a portion of it may be. So we understood that to be part of the regular tree maintenance.
Sorry to interrupt. We also agreed to look at bringing it back in a couple feet. We also had to bring in the cantilever or the overhang back in a few feet so that they could tuck up closer to the building to make sure that easy grow.
And final question on that, who's responsible for the maintenance of the trees?
So I believe we discussed that it would be part of the property owner. It would be.
Through the chair, if I could add some information. So if you notice, the dotted line along Allen is the property line. The developer agreed to go in to the east to allow for more public room on the ground floor in agreement to allow them to overhang the sidewalk. So it's going to be a wider walking space for the public, but there'll be an overhang, much like we already have an overhang on the dot. It's a covered walkway.
When you say the dotted line, are you talking, there's two dotted lines there. Is it the one closest to Allen, that's the property line?
At the one, the that line right there. That's the property line, and the building goes in, what is it, like 2 feet? 3 feet. So the sidewalk is getting 3 additional feet of, the public is getting 3 additional feet of walking space.
Okay, and now I'm completely confused. The dotted line and the yellow shaded area that's closing in on Allen Street, what is that?
The yellow space is the cantilevered at 20 feet. That's what's coming out.
Yeah, let's go back to here. So this is, you're standing across Troy and you're looking south. So this is the north elevation of the building. So the very thick dotted line here is the property line. So you can see building, I mean, you could probably tell a little bit right there. The building sneaks in a little bit on the first floor, but for above, you know, I think this is about 20 feet. The cantilever does stick out above you, so it is covered.
Are there other questions or follow-up questions? Councilwoman Mikulski?
I'm just so confused about how we're going to fit a tree in there. And I trust that there's going to be somebody who can work that process out, because even with a short tree, the branches come out, and I would hate to see that come into the sidewalk and affect the walking path.
Well, I mean, I think we are talking about, I don't know the term, columnar trees? Yeah, so, you know, they would not necessarily be wide spreading. They're more, you know, self-contained and vertical. And you can see in the drawing here, I mean, the tree is planted kind of further out, so it's not directly under the cantilever.
I mean, if I'm looking at that drawing, it looks like the canopy is right into the walking path. That's why I had that moment of hesitation and confusion.
I see.
Okay, are there other questions from council? We need a motion to proceed.
After my comment, you bring up affordable housing, which I did not.
Oh, I'm sorry, he didn't answer that. Can you answer that question?
Yeah,
about
what's the definition this year?
If I'm correct, it's all market rate housing.
Okay, that's not affordable, so you're not going to stick 4 people living here.
Through the chair, it is affordable. It's in the development agreement. That's what I'm sorry if I miscommunicated that.
I just miscommunicated.
The development agreement, we negotiated affordable units consistent with the city's affordable housing policy, which is published on the website. I don't have the specific numbers in front of me right now, but I'd be happy to share that information out.
I apologize, I misspoke. And I don't remember how many units are for affordable. Does Versa know?
All of them.
All of them?
Their goal is all with the minimum requirement compliant in the development agreement, which is 25% is the minimum. They're aiming for all. It's based on state incentives, and they have engaged the MEDC. We had previously approved this project and then scrapped it after the pandemic.
After the pandemic, yeah.
So we have to resubmit. They have to resubmit.
Yes, so that's the intention. So, thank you for that clarification. All right. We need a motion to proceed.
Motion in the matter of 221 West Troy Street, after a public hearing was held as set for this date and place, the City Council approve the amended planned unit development based on the amended planned unit development agreement dated February 1st, 2023, with the following findings and subject to the following conditions as listed in the packet.
Support.
Moved by Polika and supported by Leaks May.
Polika.
Yes.
Leaks May.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Mikulski?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes, and that passes unanimously.
And we have the site plan.
Yes. All right. So,
Motion in the matter of 221 West Troy Street, the city council approve the site plan based on plans dated December 15th, 2022, with the following findings and subject to the following conditions as listed in the packet.
Support again.
all right, moved by Polika and supported by Leaks May.
Polika?
Yes.
Leaks May?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Mikulski?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes, and that is approved unanimously. So thank you, Kyle, and thank you both for being here to answer questions.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes our public hearings. And I'm moving on to the consent agenda, and I'm going to read them in its entirety. 7A, approval of the January 23rd, 2023 meeting minutes. 7B, approval of generator radiator replacement and repairs at Albany Road Pump Station by Cummins in the amount of $9,380.62. 7C, approval and acceptance of 1111 West 9 Mile Storm Drain Easement from 1111 Ferndale LLC. 7D, approval of the agreement for the local fiscal recovery fund distribution with Oakland County to receive $200,000 in awarded funds via the seniors matching grant and authorization for the mayor and city clerk to sign the agreement. 7E, approval of payment to Miss Dig System, Inc. for the 2023 membership fee in the amount of $3,308.53 charged to water sewer fund membership and dues and the cited count number. 7F, approval of bills and payrolls as submitted by the finance director and subject to review by the council finance committee. What is the pleasure of council?
Move to approve the items on the consent agenda as published and read.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem James and supported by Mikulski.
James?
Yes.
Mikulski?
Yes.
Leaks May?
Yes.
Polika?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes, and the consent agenda is approved unanimously. And now I'm moving on to regular agenda. We have two items tonight, and the first one is 8A, consideration of the 2023 Pavement Improvement Program bid award to Al's Asphalt, oh my God, Al's Asphalt Company for the estimation amount of $2,955,541.10.
Hi, good evening tonight, Mayor and Council. Tonight we're here to present on the bid award for the 2023 Pavement Improvement Program. This is our 7th year of the road bond paving program that voters voted on back in 2015. So at this point, we have resurfaced approximately 70% of all the local streets in the city of Ferndale as part of this program. This project is a continuation of that. We're looking to resurface approximately 5.2 miles of local streets as part of this program. So there will be some curb and gutter work, some driveway ramp replacements, bringing crosswalks in ADA compliance, adjusting some of our drainage structures. We will be adding in a new drainage structure as part of this project, pavement markings, and then the other work that's associated with just the paving work in general. So we did receive 6 bids for this project this year. The low bidder was Al's Asphalt Paving with the low bid of $2,955,541.10. Al's did win the bid award for the East Camborne reconstruction in 2022. They really were a great contractor to work with, stayed on a tight schedule. There wasn't issues in terms of claims, work order changes, things like that. They really did assemble a good group of subcontractors to do concrete, the restoration work, and so on, which really made the project go smooth for the work that they did. Al's has been in business for quite some time. Asphalt is, as their name of the company says, it is their specialty. So they have assembled roughly the same group of subcontractors to work on the 2023 paving program. If council does approve that bid award this evening, overall, in terms of what the city has budgeted for this year of construction, we are under budget in terms of what we have available to us after we factor in engineering costs. The only difference is we have tacked on some additional items to our 2023 paving, which would not come out of our bond issuance. Those items are the police parking lot. We are going to put a cap on that and do some concrete repairs as much needed within that lot. Additionally, we are going to make some repairs to the drive for the Hilton Road pump station as part of this project, since that is showing quite a bit of deterioration. We're going to do a handful of street repairs from some water main breaks. We just kind of tied some of the work that we have open in the city right now into this project. And then after we finish up this, we'll have 2 more years of our road bond paving, so that'll be calendar year 2024 and calendar year 2025. We will really be wrapping everything up. So tonight it's that bid award, and then what we'll be looking at is late February is probably a bit soon, but we'll be getting out our construction notices to all the residents and businesses impacted as part of this program, likely early March to get those notices out. I don't really anticipate construction starting prior to probably the first week of April, once frost laws and stuff like that are lifted by the state of Michigan. So construction season really is right around the corner. Winter's ending, construction's starting, so this is one of the big parts of that for us this year. And with that, I'll take any questions that council has.
Thank you. Questions from council? Right.
Yeah, and then if I may add, for those that want to see what we're working on this year, between Dave and GIS and communications, if you go to the city's webpage, scroll down to sidewalks, roads, and streets, and you click on Learn More. If you come down to the major and local street construction, this will be a list of all the streets we're doing repaving on, our service line work and road repaving, water main, and so on. And then if you click on the interactive map here, that will take you to the GIS map, and it is all color-coded as to where we're doing work, what type of work we're doing. Additionally, this year, as we've done in the past couple of years, Giffords Webster, our engineering firm, they will be managing the schedule website. That'll be posted on the notices that go out, where the residents can see, okay, this week, the contractor's planning on actually doing some paving and doing the resurfacing work or milling or whatever that may be. So we'll be updating that as the projects go on. The one street that you will notice on here that is not actually part of the 2023 pavement improvement program is this section of West 9 Mile from Pinecrest to our border with Oak Park. That is because that is part of a TAP grant that we are working with Oak Park on. They will be taking the lead on that project because they are paving from Ferndale city limits a little past Coolidge. So since they have the bulk of that work, we elected to have them excuse me, lead that project, and that won't be going out. MDOT's got that slated to go out to bid in March. So you will be seeing something on that in the future. But other than that, we have everything in here up into the northeast quadrant of the city as well.
Through the chair, regarding that project, how are our businesses and residents that live along our part of 9 Mile going to be communicated? Is it going to be Oak Park communicating the schedule that is going to happen, or is it us?
We will be communicating the schedule. Okay. We will be working closely with Oak Park. Okay. In terms of just the project in general and staging, we didn't want to have 2 separate projects right next to each other and then trying to coordinate staging and traffic control and stuff like that. So we did join together, hopefully to achieve a little bit of economy of scale, and then to try and make things go smoother. But, we'll be pushing out those communications for our residents.
Thank you.
And through the chair, I did have one question. I keep getting questions from residents about how we coordinate the service line replacements and the street repaving. Can you tell me a little bit about how the streets and the service line replacements are coordinated together so that we have some level of overlap between them?
Yes. So this year's 2023 pavement improvement program will be resurfacing the streets that we did lead service line replacements in 2022. So, some of those, for example, Harris, Kenwood, Chester, West Saratoga, Stratford, Northway, Jean, Edgewood, East Webster. We did do service line replacements on those streets last year. So some of the streets that we are doing this year, we are going to try and just get out ahead and hammer out service line replacements as soon as construction season allows, and then come back and pave those streets later on this year. Just because we want to do as many of those streets as possible versus coming back, because here within probably the next 2 years, we'll start cutting open the streets that, we paved in 16 and 17. And then the remainder of the streets, such as West Hazelhurst, Pearson, you see in pink here, those are streets that we're doing lead service line replacements on this year, and those are slated for 2024 paving. So it's roughly a year behind. In some scenarios, they're occurring in the same year. We did have that for a handful of streets in 2022. East Camborne was one of those. There's only so many of those we can do in the year, just because we're jamming a bunch of work into March and April. That way our paving contractors have plenty of time to get the work done that they need to get done.
Good question.
Thank you.
All right. We need a motion. Proceed.
I would move to, move to approve the 2023 Pavement Improvement Program bid award to Al's Asphalt Company for the estimated amount of $2,955,541.10, and authorize DPW Director to sign contract documents following approval of the City Attorney as submitted by the DPW Director.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem James and supported by Councilwoman Mikulski.
James?
Yes.
Mikulski?
Yes.
Leaks May?
Yes.
Polika?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes, and that is approved unanimously, and good luck on the repaving season.
Thank you.
May the weather be with us.
And we're hoping for it.
All right, moving on to 8B. Consideration of the Citizens Police Advisory and Review Board Ordinance, and tonight, Mayor Pro Tem James will be stepping down from the dais here and presenting from the podium. For those who have not seen the first presentation on the Citizens Police Advisory Review Board, she did that back in October. And just want to say we really appreciate your leadership helping steer this ordinance forward, as well as Councilwoman Mikulski, who spent significant amount of time helping get us to this point. All right, I'm going to let you take it away, Mayor Pro Tem.
Kind of impressed with myself that I got everything set up all by myself. I will accept small victories in life, and this is one of them. Thank you, Mayor. And as the Mayor mentioned, since I did give a fairly lengthy presentation in October of last year, and we talked about this for about 90 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to revisit some of those same points, because I'm sure there's a handful of folks, particularly at home, and the 3 audience members that have hung out through this entire, I was going to say show, but it's a council meeting. But there might be a few people at home who didn't catch October's presentation, so there will be a little bit of repetition, but hopefully not too much. So tonight I'm going to review some of that same content, but really emphasize revisions that were made since October. But first, I do want to remind us of the context of this proposed ordinance. This is a continuation of the work initiated by the prior City Council that adopted the community-oriented policing model in 2016, which was born out of President Obama's Task Force on 21st Century Policing. The implementation guide for the policing model calls on local governments to take the following 5 steps. 1, create listening opportunities with community. 2, allocate government resources to implementation. 3, conduct community surveys on attitudes toward policing and publish the results. 4, define the terms of civilian oversight to meet the community's needs. And 5, recognize and address holistically the root causes of crime. And I'll remind everyone that when that was announced, then Mayor Dave Coulter and then Police Chief Tim Collins advised the community that full implementation would take many years. And here we are, many years into the implementation, getting to some of the important meat of that shift. Since that time, the Ferndale Police Department has revived the Citizens Police Academy, established a community engagement officer, held numerous street-side roundtables for engaging residents, has applied for and obtained accreditation by the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police, and has launched a data transparency dashboard, among many other initiatives. The city has also taken steps beyond the police department to promote equity and inclusion, like banning the box, which removes conviction and arrest history questions on city employment applications, banning the use of facial recognition technology, establishing a racial equity action team, which, side note, I've really enjoyed being able to share those Black History Month facts that team has put together this month. They did share some similar factoids last year internally, and I'm really excited that the public gets to see those this year. And we've also banned source of income discrimination for renters and other programs and policies promoting equity and inclusion. So the proposed ordinance that we're discussing tonight is another step in that process, one that would significantly increase the ability of residents to take leadership in giving advice and guidance to police leadership. Oops. All right, now I've got to figure out which button to push to get to the next slide. Oh, there we go. So quick agenda for tonight. Recap the history of this ordinance over the last 2.5 years, highlight the most recent revisions, summarize the board and ordinance details, and preview the next steps if the ordinance is adopted. So this slide gives an overview of public touch points on the topic, but I'll zoom in on a few highlights. I'll start with the June 2020 anti-racism resolution, which directed city staff to research and make recommendations to council for creating a community advisory board for the Ferndale Police Department, as recommended by the 21st Century Community Policing Model. Following that resolution, there have been a number of models reviewed, including the possibility of reimagining and repurposing the underutilized Civil Service Board, but ultimately, a year ago, City Council directed the Ordinance Committee to draft a baseline ordinance, which is what brought us to October. Before we got to October, the draft language was shared with council members in July and posted online last summer with a survey for public comments. And we did get public comments and feedback for a few weeks in July and August. The Ordinance Committee reconvened, reviewed that feedback, made some additional revisions. That brought us to October, lengthy presentation, lengthy discussion, few more revisions. That brings us to today. So a couple of items that we'll bring to your attention that were discussed at the last meeting where we addressed this. There was some discussion about term limits. The draft ordinance provides for 3-year terms with a limit on serving no more than 3 consecutive terms. There was some discussion about possibly revising that to 2-year terms or limiting it to no more than 2 consecutive terms, but there was no clear census from council at that time or since then, so for now we've got the same language. The document was reviewed and revised by the city's labor attorney and human resources department for consistency with policies and with collective bargaining agreements. So one revision that came out of that review was to anonymize identifiable information so that the board can conduct its work in open meetings rather than closed sessions, because we felt that that met the intent of this board more so than having a bunch of closed sessions. We really wanted to emphasize transparency and having the ability for the public to understand the operations of the board, which is a long way of saying transparency. Another aspect that was revised was emphasizing that the board can make recommendations and publish their findings, but that the board itself can't impose disciplinary actions or make personnel decisions. And that was already in the previous iteration of the ordinance, but it's been made a little bit more clear in the language. And we also added a sunset provision as a mechanism to flag the ordinance for review by the future city council so that they can evaluate whether the ordinance is serving its purpose. The text currently calls for a sunset of June 30th, 2024, but I urge candidly us to kick that ball down the road at least one more year, based on some conversations that I've had with the folks in Ann Arbor who indicated that it really took them 2, maybe even 3 years to really get everybody trained and on the same page and in a rhythm to their work. So I'd like to give us that at least 2 years to get that training and find that rhythm. Now this slide is just a reminder of a significant shift in the city's accountability structure that happened back in 2010. You can see on the left that all department heads used to report to city council. After the amendment, department heads report to the city manager. That included the police department. As you know, or hopefully you know, the mayor and city council members are all part-time elected officials. We all have full-time jobs elsewhere. So for a sort of a manager structure such as our charter, it didn't make a lot of sense for certain departments to be reporting directly to council when we have a full-time city manager who really should be managing and supervising all of the departments. I wanted to highlight that one because it's sort of far enough in the past that I think we forget about it quite a bit. But for the most part, a lot of these other slides that review the existing accountability structures and the reviews of citizen complaints and response to resistance process, I'm going to refer you back to the October presentation where we talked about it in a little bit more detail. I'm really going to focus on it here tonight in terms of what the board process would add to these layers. So let's jump to the ordinance that we are considering tonight, starting with the purpose. And I'm going to pull the language right from the ordinance, which goes in more detail than what you have on the slide here. But the purpose of the board is to provide greater transparency for police conduct complaints and use of force reports and the processes that follow, to conduct racial impact assessments of current police department policies, to improve and strengthen community police and community relationships, to foster open communication between police leadership and the community at large, to provide the city and specifically the city manager with an independent report and recommendation for police conduct complaints on appeal and use of force, reports as needed, to monitor implementation and accreditation of the 21st century community policing model and related community policing programs adopted by the police department and city council, and to review multi-jurisdictional cooperative law enforcement agreements for consistency with the city of Ferndale's values. So here are some details about how the board would be comprised. It would be a 5-member board, 5 residents would serve. Terms, according to the current draft, would be 3 years, and the proposed text would cap board members at 3 consecutive terms. Like most other boards and commissions, candidates would apply for consideration. The mayor would review and select appointees, which would be reviewed and confirmed by City Council at an open meeting. Since October, we also added that the very first chairperson would be appointed by the mayor and confirmed by council, but after that, the board would select its own chairperson on an annual basis. The ordinance requires that there would be no less than 4 meetings per year. I anticipate that there will be more than that, but we wanted to provide some flexibility in case the board determines that it wants to have sort of higher impact, longer, less frequent meetings, but there are some time frames built in when complaint appeals take place and so forth. So we do anticipate have more than likely being more than four meetings in a year. Let's see. And like most other boards and commissions, subject matter experts would be ideal for membership on the board. So the ordinance calls for members to have experience with mediation, mental health or social work, anti-racism or equity, restorative or transformational justice, law enforcement or criminal justice, or to be from vulnerable segments of the community. The board will provide an annual report to the city manager. The meeting materials will be posted for the public to view, and these would be open meetings. Again, as revised, we're even more confident in delivering on that goal. So now touching on the citizen complaint process briefly, as we discussed before, complaints can be made verbally or in writing. The board will get copies of all citizen complaints. Right off the bat, that is a change from previous procedure because there was no board, it didn't exist. But now right away, right at the complaint stage, the board's gonna get a copy to review. The investigation is still assigned. The investigation is typically completed within 45 days, whereupon the chief will conclude the investigation and provide the outcome of that investigation to the complainant, to the city manager, and to board members. Now, what's new is an appeal process for these complaints. If a complainant does not agree with the result or the finding of their complaint, they can submit an appeal to the city manager's office, which would trigger a review by the board. The board can review the documented materials, can invite the complainant to attend and discuss the matter, and invite the chief to attend and discuss. The board will then deliberate and submit a report and recommendation to the city manager's office. They'll recommend to either reverse or sustain the chief's findings. They can also provide comments or critiques on the chief's findings and recommended training if needed. The board's report and recommendation will be available to the public. Now, in addition to if a complainant appeals a decision, the board has the ability to review any complaint investigations that a majority of the board wishes to address at a meeting. It's similar to the process that we just discussed. The only difference is how it gets triggered. Now, with use of force reports, there's just a very similar process. When a use of force report is generated, it'll be shared with the board. Upon the board's choice or decision, they may provide comments or recommendations to the city manager and to the chief based on their review. Now, before I go through all of these next steps, I also just want to remind and highlight that in addition to this review process that I just outlined, the board's tasked with other advisory duties, like conducting racial impact assessments, fostering open communication between police leadership and the community, monitoring implementation of the community policing model, and the ordinance leaves a fair amount of flexibility for this body, once it's established, to decide exactly how they're going to conduct that work. So these next steps, if we pass this tonight, there will be a process, much like some of the similar task forces that we've had recently with the facilities assessment and the master plan advisory group. Basically, we'll let the public know that the applications are now open for this board. Hopefully, we'll advertise that in a number of areas so that folks who are interested, and hopefully, especially those who have the qualities that we're looking for and the experiences that we're looking for, will submit their application materials to the city clerk's office, who will help the mayor review those materials, cull them, and the mayor will bring forward recommendations to appoint particular candidates to the city council, who will review and hopefully get this board established and have their first meeting in July of this year. I have a lot more notes based on last October, but I'm going to hold on to them in case any questions or concerns come up that call for me to reread them. Otherwise, I'm going to conclude my comments and turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you so much for the really concise presentation from what happened from October to now. I invite you back up here, and we can.
Thank you. Back in my comfort zone.
If there needs to be any slides, I'll ask Kara to get you back there, okay? I'm going to open it up to questions from council about where we are, and I think you asked for an extension from what was currently written in the ordinance for the timing. So that is a request I heard from you that needs to be discussed, but we should not discuss that until there's a motion. But if there's questions of fact or anything right now.
So through the chair, I concur. I thought the 1 year sunset was way too soon. There's just not enough time to evaluate anything in 12 months. So I could support a 2 year, even possibly a 3 year. In regards to section 2-32, the terms, I noticed that we have, instead of all people starting at the same time with 3 terms, it was kind of broken up. So you're going to have 2 people start with 2 year terms, and then it said 3 people start with 3 year terms. I'm wondering if we should have it 2 people start with 2 year, 2 people start with 3 year, and 1 person start with 1 year. That way you have some movement every year. You're not having to find 3 people in 1 year, and you're also not having a majority of people coming off a board or on a board at the same time. just to allow for a bit more diversity and movement. That's my one suggestion there. In regards to representation, I know that the board reports to the city manager. Are we considering the city manager as the liaison, the staff liaison?
No. It's up to the city manager's office to appoint a liaison. It's my understanding that the initial liaison, and probably in the foreseeable future, will be the HR department.
Okay. And then, as with most of our boards, I think all of our boards, we have a council liaison. Is there an expectation that there will be a council liaison?
No, there's not.
That group, okay.
And that is, can you clarify why?
Good question. I'm not sure if I remember specifically, and if anyone else on the ordinance committee remembers, feel free to remind me. But I think we saw this as operating sort of independently outside of council's influence. It's true that most boards and commissions do have a council liaison. This one, I mean, I won't speak for everyone, but I'll speak for myself. The reason that I didn't call for it or recommend it, because my thinking was this has the potential for being a fairly busy, hefty lift. And that's not to say that council liaisons to other commissions don't have a lot of work, planning commission. But this one sort of has the potential, I think, maybe to have too much institutional influence. And I heard loud and clear from the community that they'd like it to be community-led and community decisions.
And then the last item I have is with the sunset. I believe that we need to set a level of expectation and measurements for that future council. Why did we set a sunset? And what were we expecting to accomplish during that period, so that when that new council or someone, there may be a couple people on this council that are still here, they have an understanding of where we were 2 years ago or 3 years ago, as to what the expectation was, what the deliverable was. And I don't know where that fits. I don't think it fits in the ordinance, so I don't know if it fits within the motion as a condition or.
Through the chair, you are getting an annual report, or council will be receiving an annual report every year, which will help inform council collectively as to the work of the board. But I understand what you want. It would not typically go in the actual ordinance.
Yeah.
It could be a resolution if council wanted to identify a resolution and criteria as to why it was adopting, should it decide to adopt.
Well, we don't necessarily have to adopt that resolution tonight. We could actually pass this tonight,
yes,
and then within that passing, say that within 60 days we'll have a resolution that identifies those conditions and deliverables.
Through the chair, that would be fine, because it would be provided to staff, and I think that would help inform the board.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that my understanding of the reason that the sunset provision was added was really as a way of sort of formally, institutionally saying, we want to review this at some point down the road, hopefully with an eye toward, amendments and revisions and improvement, not with striking it out and doing away with it. Personally, I'd be okay with removing the sunset provision and having something more along the lines of a resolution calling for a review of the ordinance at a certain time. But it's my understanding that sunset provisions are frequently used for exactly that purpose, so I could see it going either way. But yeah, I tend to agree with you that perhaps setting forth some expectations and some recommendations for what to look at that time might be helpful.
Yeah. Okay. That's
If I
all I
may,
have.
through the chair. So first, I wanted to, of course, thank Mayor Pro Tem James and Councilwoman Mikulski for doing such a very thorough job on this ordinance. It's very detailed. I know it's gone up through revision after revision, and I see the work in it, and I'm really proud of the work you've done. So I wanted to put that forward. I do have a question regarding the staggering terms. Now, I expect for there to be quite a bit of interest on this advisory board. And I was just wondering, regarding the applicants, how long will we hold on to those applications? Because there may be someone who didn't get it this time that may want it next time. Will they have to keep reapplying? They will, so we won't hold on to the applications.
Per our boards and commission process, people who did not get selected and want to apply again have to apply again. Because there might be 6 months to a year that has passed and we don't know where they are, and they might, their interests might have changed. And so, yes, everybody needs to reapply.
All right. That's all that I have, Mayor.
I just wanted to say that my questions were answered from our last meeting in October. My concern was about making it harder for our HR department and the city to hire police officers who were setting a higher expectation and standard than other police departments in terms of the review process of a use of force. And so, but that went through the labor attorney, and my concerns weren't addressed. Personally, I'm okay with the terms they are now. Councilman Pollica has a point. We've had a couple boards and commissions where 2 or 3 people don't renew their term. But that falls back under recruitment. Does it happen? Yes. Does it happen frequently? No. But it can. And I support doing the extended sunset as well.
Can I ask through the chair, Joe, maybe this is a question for you, or our city attorney, Dan. Councilmember Pollica's suggestion of staggering the terms even further so that there wouldn't be 3, a majority of board members leaving all at the same time, based on how we've started things. I guess from an administrative perspective, do you see any problems that we're not anticipating? Because I think there's some value to having them spread out over 3 years.
No, I think with our current software, we have the ability to kind of automate those renewals better than we would have a couple years ago. I'm confident the staff can facilitate that.
Through the chair, it's really complete discretion of council. The one positive of that, it would call attention again to the board as an opening occurs. So that would be one point in favor of such a further amendment or clarification.
I do have to say that our boards and commissions process, when I became mayor, was challenged. I didn't realize how many emails I would be getting from staff asking me to appoint people every week, and it was a little daunting, and so we have a better process with the software and how it comes to the mayor and how I interact with all of you on appointments for the boards and commissions that you sit on. The one next question I have, because it only applies to the first year, the mayor, mayor appoints future candidates who apply, but how do I choose, or how does council choose which applicants for the first seating of this board? Who gets a two-year seat and who gets a 3-year seat?
You could make that part of the application process. They're seeking the 3-year, they're seeking the 2-year, they're seeking the 1-year.
Okay, that's a great suggestion as part of the application process.
I would add to that too, that, and this is a bit of work on your plate, but when you get to the point of having, 5 candidates that you are ready to put forward, if no one has volunteered for that 1-year term, you might make some follow-up phone calls and see where the interest is. I'll note that the language says no member shall serve on the board for more than 3 consecutive full terms. So I think folks who get appointed for one of those initial partial terms won't be, capped at a, lower amount of service years. They'll be able to continue and if they so choose, seek 3 full terms. So it wouldn't, in other words, it wouldn't be
You could serve 10 years.
to their detriment, right?
That one-year person could actually serve 10 years.
Right.
Yep. And I guess I just want to share, out of the last 3 years serving as mayor, quite a few residential volunteers move on before their term is ended because their life circumstances have changed and the demands on their time have changed, and so they conclude their service before the end of the term. That's just the way it is. And so I support people having things change in their life. Okay. We need a motion to proceed and then amend language if we need to on certain areas.
I would love to make a motion, if you'll indulge me momentarily, and I'm going to make the motion actually with 2 amendments built into the motion.
Okay.
So, get that Al's asphalt out from in front of me. I'm going to move to approve the Citizens Police Advisory and Review Board Ordinance with the following 2 amendments. The first being to section 2-32, the 3rd sentence, which I would amend to include that the initial appointments shall require one of the initial members to be appointed to serve a 1-year term, 2 to serve 2-year terms, and 2 to serve 3-year terms. And the second amendment would be to part 5, the very last sentence, which instead of reading June 30th, 2024, would read June 30th, 2026.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem James and supported by Mikulski.
Through the chair. Your Honor, there was one issue in the drafting of this. The initial name was referenced in the ordinance as Police Review and Advisory Board. My understanding is most people have been referring to it as Citizens Police Advisory and Review, just the reversing of the review and advisory. So
Because PARB sounds better than
should council want
PRAD.
that
So we're calling it CPAR?
That's correct.
Well,
Wait a minute, can you repeat,
That's what I was,
can you repeat the name, the name we want it to be,
it's in,
please?
it's in the motion.
Okay.
The motion's correct, but the ordinance text is, utilizes, I'm not sure who's drafting that, but it references citizens police review and advisory as opposed to
I'll
advisory
take the
review.
hit on that one, and I will, probably did that. So I would add one more revision. We'll make it a blanket revision such that any reference to the Citizens Police Review and Advisory Board would be amended to Citizens Police Advisory and Review Board. Because you're right, that is the nomenclature that we have developed over the last couple months.
I will forever now say this incorrectly going forward.
Let's remember CPAR.
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 Okay, thank you, moved by James and supported by Mikulski. Do you need support again?
Yeah, I think so.
I support, okay. All right, thank you for that amendment to the original motion. Okay.
Before you call the vote,
I was gonna say, last comment.
I skipped all my thank yous that I gave back in October, but it bears repeating that I really want to thank the ordinance committee for spending a lot of time and a lot of meetings on this. Thank the many residents who've given input from the very beginning, as my friend Prasad mentioned during public comment earlier, as well as those who gave input when the survey went out. I want to thank the chief for being very open through this process and providing input. A lot of chiefs would have resisted something like this. I really appreciate your openness. And this was really a collaborative team effort between a lot of people, so thank you. And Denicia Woods McSwain gets big props for being the staff person who really was the steward of this process, and I really appreciate her.
And I appreciate you for all of your leadership. So, and I also want to express my support to all of our police officers in our police department, who I know work hard and try very hard to support Ferndale's values as an organization and the police values that they've articulated through the department, and honorably serve our community. And I see them leaders changing their profession. And that I appreciate and recognize. So. All right, we need a roll call.
James?
Yes.
Mikulski?
Yes.
Leaks May?
Yes.
Polika?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes. And that is approved unanimously. All right, folks, that is the conclusion of our regular agenda, and we are moving on to call to council, starting with the city manager and department updates. And I see we're going to have Parks and Rec first.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Emmanuel knows the process.
Good evening, everybody. So just a few quick updates. We've been talking about it for a few council sessions now, but our daddy-daughter dance is now upon us. It is taking place this Saturday at Ferndale High School. Pre-registration is required, and you can find more information on that at our registration site. Last I checked, there was about 45 spots remaining out of the 200 that we opened up. So if you're interested, please get on that as soon as possible. We also want to thank Pops for Italian. They are holding a promotion for us for anybody that is registered for the event, in which you pay for your adult entree, wow, and your registered guests, your kids, eat free at the restaurant the night of the event. So for more information on that, contact us at the Ferndale Parks and Recreation Department. Big thank you to them for that. Our next special event will be the Extravaganza, which will take place on Saturday, April 1st at various city parks. So it'll be various Easter egg hunts that we do, and there'll be prizes and giveaways. And the Easter Bunny will be there at Martin Road Park, and it should be a nice time. It's a free event for the public, that one. We also want to let council know that there will be a series of agenda items that will be coming up in the next few sessions. We have various MDNR applications that we need to do, which call for public hearings. We'll also be doing a presentation which will overview the park upgrades that we are planning for Wilson Park, and we anticipate getting that bidding process out sometime within the next month or so, hopefully, so that we can begin construction in the spring this year. And lastly, I want to make sure that everybody at home knows that summer camp is coming. Registration for summer camp will begin that first week in April. It'll be posted around mid-March with all of the information that you need in order to register. So if you still have any questions or anything, you can feel free to contact me at the Ferndale Parks and Recreation Department. And that is all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. As a parent, summer camp registration is a competitive sport.
I understand.
So I appreciate your patience in the next coming months. City Manager's Office will go next. I want to just give an update. The Ferndale Housing Commission Director recruitment process is moving along forward. I want to really credit our Human Resources Department for going above and beyond and stepping in as a community partner to support the Housing Commission. The process is closed, and we do plan on holding an interview panel next week. So looking forward to that progress. Also, reminder, President's Day is next Monday, February 20th, and the city offices are closed as consistent with the state offices being closed. So the city offices will be closed on Monday, February 20th, in observance of President's Day. Second quarter budget amendment should be scheduled to be reported out on the next City Council agenda. And a reminder, the annual City Council budget workshop is scheduled for Saturday, March 18th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. This is a public meeting. It will be posted and recorded as such. And next we have Police Chief Emmy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. A couple brief topics. I wanted to recap our flock community discussion we held virtually on January 25th. We had attendance from over 40 members of our community, which is really a fantastic turnout. There's some great conversation and things that we need to discuss a little bit further and see if it's the right fit for our community and educate and communicate values. We are looking for more input and more engagement at an in-person discussion and engagement session on February 23rd. It's tentatively scheduled from 6 to 7, possibly at Incambizo, but we're to be determined. Check with our Facebook page, the city website, and city Facebook page for further details. We hope as many people can make it as possible and make it a worthwhile event. Also, I really look forward to working with the incoming members of the inaugural Citizens Police Advisory and Review Board. It's an honor to be a part of the planning and discussion. I truly appreciate the way council valued the police officers' input, my input, and I think it's a credit to our community and to this council, and I really look forward to working with them going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And that is all from staff this evening. Who did I miss? Yeah, I know I took her body languages to suggest she has an important,
Fire
call.
chief just exited the building.
Had she been here, she would have reminded the public about open burn permits and business registration reminders that you could expect in the mail in the coming weeks. She'll be back on February 27th with a more in-depth message.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe.
And that's all, Mayor. Sorry. Back to you.
Okay, I'm going to start on the left tonight with council updates.
I have nothing this evening, Mayor.
Hey.
I have nothing this evening, Mayor.
Okay.
Not a thing from me, Mayor.
I also have nothing this evening.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I guess that I was too slow on my pulling up my energy efficiency tax credits. Okay, so a couple things. I just received more information from Oakland County. There's another Veterans Resource Fair at Madison Heights, or sorry, not Madison Heights, in Huntington Woods on March 23rd. And they're giving away, there will be representatives there to help our veterans with free food boxes and any other services they might need. It came out in my mayor's message and the email blast, I think it was last week, but there are significant energy efficiency tax credits coming available for homeowners who want home energy audits, who want to install home energy efficiency upgrades. I will post this on my mayor's Facebook page, but I do think it's something that we need to share in some way with the FBSC group and identify how to get more residents to take a look at doing home energy audits and energy efficiency upgrades to help offset the costs. There's significant funding coming out of the Inflation Reinvestment Act, which is a lot of the climate change funds. But as part of our climate action plan, one of it is to reduce our building energy efficiency or reduce our greenhouse gases in homes. But the city government can't do a lot of that on our own. We need the federal government with incentives. So I will send out the IRA Energy Efficiency Tax Credit Program. There's so many that residents can take advantage of. So, and then finally, I will be on WDTE, Detroit Today, this Wednesday, February 15th, with Stephen Henderson to talk about Ferndale's anti-racism and equity work and generally what's happening in the suburbs. And I encourage you to listen. I will be promoting all of the hard work that we've done here on council and with staff and what the residents have been asking for the changes in our community. Mayor, can I?
Reminder of that, Mayor, so that
Yes, I will post it tomorrow. They'll be start promoting it to you on radio tomorrow. That'll be on the show on the 15th.
If I can just add to the Ferndale Environmental Sustainability Commission as one of the areas of focus of that commission for this year, helping homeowners improve their energy efficiency is one of our goals. So you will be seeing more from our commission right on the topics that you just discussed.
Yes.
In fact, we discussed it
I know
at our
that
last
their
meeting.
interests, yes, I
Right.
know their interests.
Great.
Particularly solar, wind, just energy efficiency improvements, insulation and windows and window replacement is can get a tax incentive to help you offset the cost of your new windows. I have like 12 that need replacing. This might be a good thing. With that, I have no more comments, and I hope everybody has a great meeting or a great evening. And I am concluding our meeting at 9:19. Thank you.